So before I start, okay, and a lot of this will be based on, I think, Q&A, because, okay, I'll give some overview, but I think the main thing is, people have questions and I'll answer. And if I won't know an answer, which could be because people can surprise me here, then I'll politely ask, write them down, and I'll get back to everyone with the answer. Okay? So before we start, I just want to mention that we're in a very special day today. I think that we must mention it. And I'm referring specifically to the fact that it's now Gimel Elul. And Gimel Elul is the yahrzeit of Rav Kook, Zecher Tzadik Libracha. And nothing is coincidental. Rav Kook, as the chief rabbi, had to deal with responsibility as the first chief rabbi of how do you observe Shmita on the national level. That was the challenge that he was meeting with. And I think that we'll speak about it more next week, naturally, where we'll speak about the status of produce and the kitchen. But I will say that Rav Kook wrote a very important book about Shmita called Shavat Haaretz, a halachic book, an important book. And the intro is more, you can call it philosophical, theological. He explains the vision of Shmita, the dream of Shmita. And it's a fascinating introduction. Some of you learned parts of it with me in the Monday morning class. For now, because it's the yahrzeit, I'll just say, Rav Kook explains very powerfully how Shmita for Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael is inevitable, is a must. Just like the individual has to have a Shabbos once in every week, and that is because if we'll be consumed with material life with no break, then that's it. We'll be just trapped in the material life, where the purpose of us as people who were created in God's image and Jews who have a message to the world of implementing the ideals, the morals, the values of the divine, implementing them here in the world of human beings. So we must have a Shabbos. I could add Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, the Kuzari, even says that our 3 prayers a day are like a mini Shabbos every day, because you make a stop in order not to be trapped in the material life. You have a break where you could fill in the spirituality, and then that light, it will shed light on the ordinary life. That's the purpose of Shabbos. Shabbos sheds light over all the 6 days. And on the national level, says Rav Kook, Am Yisrael has a mission. We're a regular nation with territory, with agriculture, with economy. We're a regular nation, a normal nation, but an abnormal nation in the positive way. Beyond normality, in the sense that we have a mission to prove to the world. That's why Avram Avinu founded, Rav Kook writes it in a different book in a row, that's why Avram Avinu founded the Jewish nation, as it says in the verse, Ki yedativ leman asher yetzavet banav et beito acharav v'shamur derech Hashem la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat. The purpose of Avram Avinu was to illustrate to the entire world. It was a universal message. Our nationalism has a universal message. Rav Kook claims. It's in order to say that not only it's possible that there'll be individuals who are righteous, individuals could be detached from material. They can go to the desert, be Nazarites, whatever. A nation should must deal with economy, must deal with politics, must deal with security, and to remain a spiritual nation, this is a challenge, and this challenge could be met. That's the school of Am Yisrael. And so that's the reason why we have a land and farms and economy. That's the reason why why Avram Avinu founded the Jewish people to be a regular nation in a territory, etc. Now, without the once in 7 years break, that is Shabbos, that is parallel to the once in every week Shabbos, without that, then as a nation we'll be trapped in the material life of running a nation with private property, with everything economy, everything that has to do with it. So once in 7 years, you need that break in order that we will fulfill our mission as Jewish people, implementing the heavenly spiritual ideas in this world. Therefore, Shmita is inevitable. Shmita is a must to the people of Israel. And no doubt that Parshat Bechukotai tells us that in the exile, we're paying each Shmita that we didn't observe. That's a year that we in exile. That explains it. You see, the whole existence of us and how relevant it is to our era when we, Bechasdi Hashem, came back to Israel, all of us sitting here in the yard of a shul, in the Pergola Boda in Jerusalem, how blessed we are, how privileged we are, how generations were just dreaming about it. And we have Shmita. So true. It's more like a reminder of Shmita, in a sense, because Shmita is only Derabanan, and not the society is not agricultural, so many differences. So we should, everyone, and now I'm getting to the shiur, everyone that observes something in his garden or in his pot, atzitz. What? Flower pot, in plant pot, flower pot, planter. Yeah, I looked at Morphix today, though I did my homework. So flower pot, planter, everyone that in his yard and in his kitchen next week will see that things are different. Yes, it's not the vision of Shmita that Rav Kook portrayed in his intro. That's a dream. We're striving to it. We're yearning to it. But we have reminders, and that's how we should feel when we eat next week. When we eat fruit b'kedusha, that's how we should feel. Okay, enough for the intro. Now let's go to business. So maybe Dafka will start with some questions, and then I'll give a certain overview. Yes, Chava.
Why are big plant boxes that are not attached to the ground, why can't they be worked?
Very good. So that's a question, by the way, I understand that's not a practical question, that's a why question. No, it's a why, because you presented a fact. I know that I'm not allowed to. Okay, and then you want to know the reason. That's a legitimate question. I'm just saying it's not. It's fine. B'simcha. We'll touch that. Of course. That was your question. Oh, I see that bothers people. You know, why can't I treat the flower pot in an ordinary way? Okay, so we'll talk about it. Yeah. Hedges. Okay. Okay. The okay. It's branches of fruit trees? Doesn't no. No, of course, no. Here, you know, there are some discussions about Arabos. No, I can understand that. I can understand the question. Maybe okay. So Beseder. Okay, I fully generally no, but there could be exceptions. If there are going to be exceptions, I will what? Okay, the Arba Minim and Kedusha Shvius we'll touch Bezrat Hashem next week. Gabi?
The grass is dying.
Okay.
The rest of it is fine. How much work can I do to that grass that is dying at this point?
Okay. All right, so we'll deal with grass in general, not grass, you know what I mean, grass, yeah. What? So use of a composter is next week's class, okay? Because that's treating the kedusha tree, okay? It's a good question. We'll deal with it next week. Ezra Hashem. Right. I have fruit on my tree, and then there's bugs going on.
I think it's before Shmita. No, you get Shmita to right before Shmita.
Okay, great. But Nitzanim. Okay, got it. Not bugs, but okay, got it. All right. Okay. All right. So, okay, I think that's enough for now. I'll tell you the problem. I'll forget some of the questions. So let's make several rounds. And I'm already saying that if I'll forget some of the questions, then please, I appoint any one of you who asked a question and was left not answered to raise it up. So we'll start with the flower plant. Okay. The why. Why a flower plant? What does it have to do with Shmita? The Shmita said the verse is, the pasuk is v'shavta haaretz. Okay, so the flower plant is not ba'aretz. So what should be the problem? Okay.
Are we talking about
What?
perforated box or non-perforated?
Ma? Okay, so what's the term?
Perforated or not?
Perforated. From now on, I will not use the word perforated because I'll probably mispronounce it or forget it. It's perforated means nakuf, and another means eino nakuf. Okay, so of course there is a difference, and I'll explain. Okay, of course there is a difference. Actually, I'll start with what is permissible. Okay, and I remember that David asked me that like already a long nachon. If I have a flower plant that is a what? Flower pot. A flower pot, excuse me, a flower pot that is not perforated, is not nakuf, doesn't have a hole in the bottom. Okay, and when I say doesn't have a hole in the bottom, I want to stress, even if it does have a hole in the bottom, but there is a plate under it, that is considered that it doesn't have a hole in the bottom. Okay, or yeah, just on top of it.
Okay.
Right. Furthermore, according to the majority of opinions, even though Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is a shtickle machmer on it on some aspects, but when it's on the balatot, even if it's in a chomat karka, okay, then according to most opinions, because it's not on the ground, it's eino nakuf, okay, it's not has the status, okay, but at any rate, definitely, if you want to be machmer like so let's say in second floor, whatever, if it's on the balatot, unless it's cheres, unless it's tachlis. I'll give you a dear lady from the community asked me a shaila about her davka cheres, a certain earth, flower plant, more true a pot, more true tree pot. That was it was on the street that was with stones, the street. And when I asked Machona Torah Ba'aretz, but that's actually it's written that it is considered not without a hole. Okay, even though it was mamash outside, but it was not on the land, it was on stones. So that was considered atzitz she'eino nakuv. Okay, eino nakuv. At any rate, back to our topic. Let's start with what is permissible. Dafka. Okay, what is permissible? If two conditions are met, one, that the atzitz, the flower pot, doesn't have a hole. B, that it's under a roof, meaning it's in the house. It's not outdoors, it's in the house. If both of these conditions are met, then you could actually treat that flower pot regularly, totally regularly. There is a question whether I could mamash sow, meaning that in the month of Cheshvan, okay, I decide that I want to sow some things in the flower pot that doesn't have a hole that is in my house. Tachlis, it's mutter. We're trying not to do that. Why am I saying tachlis, it's mutter? Next week's class, one of the produce that we use, one of the solutions is what's called matzah menutak, meaning things, vegetables that Jewish farmers are doing here in Israel. When they're not on the ground, they're really in a big pot, okay, without a hole, and it's indoors and not outdoors, and we say that it's mutter. The thing is that sowing, we generally prefer that better, maybe only, people that's their parnasa will do. Though, tachlis, strictly speaking, even a private person could l'chora sow, but what he could definitely do, even if, let's say, Ramon says, better to refrain from sowing, a private person, but treating the flower pot totally normally, as if there is no Shmita, okay? If these two conditions are met, that it's indoors, i.e. has a roof, and it's without a hole, okay, on a coop or a play, whatever, so that's what's mutter. So, why is that? Because, now I'll get back to the question, why are other things, let's say, a flower pot that doesn't have a hole but is outdoors, why we're machmir, meaning it doesn't have a roof on top of it? Why is that? Why do we have restrictions regarding that? Or a flower pot with a hole, but it's indoors, okay? Why are we having stringencies regarding that? So here, just to make it short, there is, the Yerushalmi has a suffix regarding atzitz, regarding a flower pot, whether the commandment regarding Shmita, it says, on the one hand, it says sadcha lo tizra. Okay, sadcha, field, so it's not a field if it's excuse me, it's not regarding a pot, it's regarding if it's in the house. It says shavta haaretz, so that talks about the land. The land is not necessarily a field. The land is even if it's in your house. Okay, so shavta haaretz, the land should rest. The land is not only the field. On the other hand, in the prohibitions of the works, it says sadcha lo tizra regarding the field. So we're left with a doubt. So some say, okay, if it's a doubt of the Yerushalmi, then since Shmita is derabanan, so we could be lenient. However, many are saying, and the Chazon Ish is saying, no, the suffix is originally when Shmita was deraita. So we already decided that we're stringent in it. So even when Shmita is derabanan, okay, so the assumption is that of the poskim nowadays that Shmita is merely derabanan. Nowadays, that's a basis for a lot of things. That's a basis for the kulos and otzar beidin. That's the basis for the heter mechira. Rav Kook wouldn't support heter mechira had Shmita being deraita. The reason why Shmita is the Rabbanan, I'm just saying it briefly, is not only because of the things you said, it's because, maybe eventually maybe we'll be the majority here. It's pretty soon, it seems, if not. But the thing is that, according to Reb Chaim, there is a criteria that when we conquered the land, it should have been Biat Kulchem. But even if we don't accept Reb Chaim, there is an opinion in Rishonim that Shmita is deraita only when Yovel is deraita. That's the dominant. And Yovel is deraita only when not only the majority of the people of Israel are here, but everyone knows his portion, which we don't know the Nachalot. So currently, Shmita is the Rabbanan. On the one hand, we're sad that it's the Rabbanan. We would have wanted it to be the Oraita. On the other hand, practically, of course, there are a lot of leniencies due to the fact that it's the Rabbanan. Okay, back to our point. At the end of the day, we are stringent, we're machmir, that even in the house, if it's a karka, then we're observing Shmita, at least midirabanan. And we're also machmir that if the atzitz, even if it doesn't have a hole, as long as it's outdoors, then we're machmir. Only when we have the combination of the two. Okay? Chazon Ish says that it's because it's already two doubts, so we're lenient with it. Rav Lichtenstein, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, just explained that the whole basis is either it's a field or it's a karka, aretz. When you have a flower pot without a hole in the house, it's neither a field nor a karka, so one could be lenient with it.
Which case could you transplant? Or could you, let's say, the roots have increased a lot, you need a larger stick for the plant?
Okay, so if
That would be a problem.
again, okay, right. So yeah, I reviewed this today. So let me just I don't want to say something wrong here, but okay. Yeah. First of all, you could when you have a tzitz without a hole, indoors, you can definitely transfer it to another tzitz.
Once you take it out, it's all whole.
No. But I'm saying again, if it's all indoors and you're just transferring it from one flower pot to another flower pot, so even though it was for a second not outside, it's fine. Okay, it's mutter.
And a larger flower pot to make it grow even more.
I'm saying if it's without a hole and indoors, it's okay. Now, mutar letapel bo karagil, even to sow, I said really, though maybe better not. You could, of course, transfer it. I mean, just move it in the house. Of course, you can. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach actually, and let's say here regarding growth, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that let's say indoors, you could move it, let's say to a place where it will grow better. Let's say there is more light. It's fine because again, it's not a. If we'll use Rav Lichtenstein's argument, it's not a field and it's not a ground. Okay. Now, what about what? Right, I agree, and yet still, as long as you're indoors, and remember, I want to remind you, please, that indoors usually you have balatot, nachon? How do you say balatot? What? Okay, so you can do that. Indoors, you can do that. Okay, from one flower pot that is without a hole, or let's say on a plate, to move to, okay, transfer it to a different flower pot. It's fine. I'm replanting it where? Indoors, and it has a plate under it. It's okay. It's okay. That's what I'm telling you. Okay. You don't have to do it, but I'm just saying that it's okay. And I gave you the reason for it because I look, strictly halachically speaking, you're allowed even to sew. And you feel like for Hanukkah, I don't know, you're sewing now in that pot, empty pot, only has ground in it. We're sewing in that pot that has a plate under it, okay, in your home. That's okay. Okay, strictly speaking. Rabbi Ramon says, better not to sew if you're a private person. He himself says it kind of berech, so, and we all rely on it when we're eating matzah menuta. Yeah, we're all relying on it. So now we're only just to complete the point with the flower pots because we have other questions here. To move, of course, to move a flower pot that has a hole when it's outdoors, then it's mamash mechubar lakarka. Yeah, then of course you can't do that. However, Rav Ramon is lenient to move a pot that has let's say a plate under it and it's outdoors, even without a roof, to move it from a location to location. The location in the Gina, you could do only one restriction. When it's outdoors, if the things that are, the minute that you have branches that are already going out of the pot, then it's already a bigger problem. Okay, then it's already when it's outdoors. Then there are stringencies regarding it. Yes, please. A pergola boda. Okay, pergola boda. Here we are. Pergola boda. And here, this is stone, and the atzitz is over it. And if you want to be more stringent, like then put a plate under it. This is considered. It's considered okay. Pergola boda. You might say it's not always extracted, whatever. But in a place with a permanent roof, yes, you could be lenient. Yeah, you could be lenient. Some require some small mechitzos, but you could be lenient with it. Okay, let's go please to the next. Of course, if there'll be more questions about flower pots, you could email me. You could. It's all good. Okay, this is just the shots. The second question, was about the branches. We answered it briefly, and if there's going to be some things to complete regarding it, we'll do that. Then there was a question about grass. Okay, so yeah.
You're allowed to pay, allowed to do whatever is necessary.
Right. So
keep it alive. If part of the grass is already dying, what are you allowed to do? Out in the open, no.
So as you said, the general rule regarding grass is that we water it so that it won't die, right? We do all the maintenance that is needed. We also cut it. We're allowed to cut the grass in Shmita. And dafka lehefech. If you won't cut it, it says that if you will make big intervals regarding the cutting, too big, that's dafka not good, because then dafka helps the growth. Because the general rule regarding rabbinic malachot, let's now go a little bit, let's digress a little bit and start. There are four or five jobs that are prohibited from the Torah's rule, and that is sewing, pruning, right? That's how you zmira. That's how you. It's more fixed, so I need a pruning, right? So it's sewing, pruning, harvesting, and here the advantage of Hebrew over English. Grape harvesting, betzira. We have a special word for that. Okay, so hooray, our vocab is more rich. Okay, so These are the four jobs, works of the field that are prohibited on the level of the Oraita. Just a little reservation, we are allowed to harvest or to grape harvest a little bit in Shmita, but only, as we know, in small amounts just for us to eat. So that is allowed to do. And this should also be done preferably b'shinui. B'shinui meaning with a little change. Let's say not with the normal instrument that we're doing it or stuff like that. No, you don't need to go that far. At any rate, so sowing, pruning, and that's midoraita. Then we have a whole set of rabbinic jobs that we're not allowed to do. But there is a leniency. Everything that is done in order to improve the growth is prohibited. But everything that is done in order to save the plant, the tree from death, that is permitted. Consequently, cutting the grass, okay? If I'll wait too much during Shmita, then my cutting will actually improve the growth because it's so tall that the grass is so it covers light. And by cutting it, I allow the light to come and grow the grass. However, if I cut it pretty regularly, then it's a maintenance thing. It's not, it's just to, so that's why that will be permitted. Watering the grass. Here you see all kinds of things written in books. Generally speaking, I'll give you the bottom line, is that we are, okay, Rav Rimon's recommendation, my friend Rav Rimon's recommendation is to make the spaces between the watering, the breaks between a little bigger. Tachlis, let's jump to that. You should water it in the amount that is needed that the grass will not die. Okay, that's what you should really do. And he says here that he claims here his claim that the tachlis, the watering, yeah. So yeah, okay, cutting, he says only for beauty and not for better growth. That's the cutting of growth cutting of a grass that is mutter. Here he says he claims in the majority of the areas of Israel, it is good to open the mamterot, the water, what? Sprinklers, yeah, for once a week for about an hour and a half for the grass. That's what he says. Okay, you could ask your local gardener in order that it won't die. He says, of course, you could do the following thing. And what he says and that's based on the Tata Shulchan, I think that or Rav Karlitz, excuse me, that once it's open, the duration could be even long. Meaning you could play with it that the breaks will be bigger than in regular year, the breaks between the watering, but once it's watering, you can even extend the time of the watering. He says, of course, if you could computerize it, meaning if you're then here, and I don't think, even though he writes it, if I remember for last Shmita, from what my understanding, it's not that practical. You guys will correct me. That he says that if you program the computer before Shmita that will water during all the Shmita, that's really, then you could even do it in the most regular way, like every year, because you did everything before Shmita. I don't know if it's that practical. Probably your local gardener will tell you that he usually does some adjustments during the year. Yeah, so I don't know why he writes it. He's very happy about it, but I don't know how much it's practical. Let's say that. Yeah, that breaks. I meant. I'm saying that once it's open, you could water it, but the interval, he claims that an hour. Look, the basic thing is that, as we said, that maintenance is permitted and improvement is prohibited. Okay, so I think that should be the thumb rule that should direct us regarding watering the grass. And Gabe, I don't know if I answered you because you asked a very specific thing about.
If you need to prevent some disease that is going on in your grass, if they're chemo or something,
Right.
flowers that are eating the roots, are you allowed to administer certain insecticides?
Right, very good.
Or,
So here is exactly again here. L'chora, there was a question because it seems from a Mishnah that Dafka were prohibited from doing it, and then the question was how come? Because after all, it seems that according to the rules of Shmita, that rabbinic jobs are mutter for maintenance, for prevention of death. It should have been mutter, and the Chazon Ish and Rav Kook and everyone answers that question from the Mishnah. The bottom line is the following. If there is a way to prevent it, let's say there is a risk for a tree. If there is a way to prevent it, not by a risus, but by another means, like putting a reshet, a net, or something like that, that's better. But if not, one is allowed to put some, how did you call it? Insecticizer. Okay, great. So Morphix didn't cover everything. I expected that, but so one is allowed to apply that. If it's done, just one should be very careful because sometimes these things are done in order to improve growth. So it should really be for, as you say, there is a risk. I'm preventing it, and of course, if preventive actions could be done before Shmita, like now, or close to Rosh Hashanah, like putting in an insecticide, whatever, then it's much better to do it this way. But if there's a need, you could do it in Shmita. Okay. So I hope that answered about the grass. What was the other question? Was after the question? Yes? So let me clarify. The buds, you said they came out now. Right. Right. So here, lemon tree. Yeah, I also have a lemon tree. So Baruch Hashem. I mean, it's the landlord's, but okay. So look, the rule, if I understand the question correctly, and if not, then clarify it to me. Regarding fruits in general, the beginning of Shmita. Let's go. I'm jumping a little bit to next week's shiur, but it's only just to. The beginning of Shmita, the main issue is vegetables, is not fruit. Why? Because everything that it's chanata, meaning budding, is done before Tu B'Shvat this year, not before Rosh Hashanah. Critical day is Tu B'Shvat. If it's done before Tu B'Shvat, it is considered fruit of the 6th year. Only if the budding is after Tu B'Shvat, only then we start dealing with fruit of Shmita, which is a big deal indeed, because of, or as Rav Rimon was, it's not such a big deal as you make out of it. And yeah, I agree with you. It's not just a big, but it's a big deal in terms that we'll eat fruit with kedusha. That's a big deal in my mind. Okay, but in terms of lack of convenience, it's not a big deal. I agree. At any rate, therefore, dealing with fruits of Shmita, that will be more practical, as you know, more in the continuation of this coming year, not in the first months of the year, and during the 8th year. During next year, we'll still have to deal with fruit of Shmita. Okay? Now, yeah, of course, there are the tables. We'll have the table. We'll all look at the tables. Yeah, as Rav Lichtenstein wrote in that article, Hatzofim Baluchot. Yeah, that's that the Shmita is a halachic tragedy, both for those who are relying on Heter Mechira, it's a halachic tragedy for those, just as it is a halachic tragedy for those looking at the tables. They shouldn't be feel superior to. But at any rate, but that's a different issue, not for me. Now I don't know. So okay, great. Now there were more questions. Are we ready for the second round? Yes. Yeah. Good. So here, very good. So here, the question here, Kniyat atzitzin b'chanut. Yeah, purchasing a flower pot in a store. One is allowed to buy flower pots where b'mashtela shomeret shvi'it. Okay, there are what is mashtela? Okay, in a nursery. Oh, that's a great word. Okay, so in a nursery that is known to be Shmita preserving. So yeah, no, I'll explain it. It means exactly that. Just for an example, if it's a flower pot with a hole and it was on the ground, okay, then you're not allowed to sell it now to someone. Okay, just an example. Look, there are nurseries that either have a hashgacha or this thing does exist. What? So it doesn't exist. Okay, that's a reality question. I mean, it's Rav Rimon claims they exist. You guys claim it doesn't exist. That's fine. No, maybe you're right. It's not a machloket in halacha. It's a machloket in reality. You might be wrong. Okay, but you can't just assume. Okay, of course, it's like, look, anyone can inquire if the person there is reliable, then maybe you can inquire. Now, now the thing is, how can I transfer? Let's say I found someone who is Yereh Shamayim, okay, that I rely on him, that everything is okay, and I buy for it. He had a flower pot indoors, whatever, and it's okay, and you could buy from him. Now the question is, how do I tachlis take them? I schlep them to the car. How do I do it in a proper way? So here, Rav Shlomo Zalman says you could actually take them. You take them regularly. You take them from that place, put it in the car, and then put it in your home. Of course, you won't put it not in the ground. You put it in your home with a plate under it or whatever is required. And Rav Elyashiv has a chumrah here. Give you the logic. I think we all understand to cover it with nylon, with a plastic bag while transferring. Why? I understand, because he doesn't want things are going out of the pot. They'll be over the ground. That will be a problem. So he says, okay, there in the nursery, take a cover, plastic cover, take it that way, then put it in your home. Shalom Alisrael. Okay? So that's now of course you need to acquire it from someone that you can rely on, that it's okay.
So the line buy and go straight to the nursery from a flower store that has had it in the store before
If you go to a flower store and that flower pot was always from the beginning of the Shmita, indoors, okay, with indoors with a plate under it or just not under or whatever. If you go there and you're sure that it was there, it started Shmita that way, I think that you could buy it. And a bakasha. Regular flowers in terms of right there you have hashgacha, right? So look, if you will, I know I know that this is no. I know that this is I understand the question, and Tachlis, I Dafka planned to speak about it next week as part of, not the garden, but buying produce. So that was a part of, so if it's okay, I'll give an answer next week. Vakasha, Judy. If I get, what is it? So it's tulipim. Okay, what? If you take, okay, you have I'm not that acquainted, but okay, there is a certain plant, tulip, that, what do you want? Ma? Ma, יש לו בר? יש לו פקעת. Okay, all right, and?
You put it.
You are asking about, so it's planting in a pot at your home. Let's say there's a plate under it. So as I said already, strictly speaking, if meets the two conditions, it's in the home or with a roof, and there is a plate under it, then strictly speaking, you're allowed to do it. Just like sowing as I answered court before, as just like sowing in a flower pot when it's indoors and it's without a hole, you're allowed to do it. It is true that Rav Rimon is saying, do everything, but from planting, it's maybe better not to do it, but there's room for leniency here. If okay, Kim Menachem. Please look at the email that I sent, the detailed email from Yud Be'av that I sent about all this thing, but I will still answer you. So I'll get back to you. Is that up? Yeah.
What about outside of like permanent?
Plants.
You mean about
Plant.
outside of permanent? They underneath for a long time.
So what about it? Can I what? So here, no, I understand. So here, due to the fact, now there, here we have to make a certain distinction. There are, wow, I looked at Morphix Adanit. That's flower. No, flower planter, video flower planter. Are you talking about this or is the thing these plants that you're talking about, are there in a certain flower pot that is connected to the ground or not? Oh, they're plates underneath. They're outdoors. Are things going out of the? So look, even if not, since it's outdoors, we're more stringent with this. Okay, and definitely even more so when you're telling me that some of the things grow and are actually are. No, but I understand that they're not touching that, but they're above the ground. They're above the ground. Okay. So here you should treat them really, okay? So the way you treat these things, okay, halachically, the way you treat such a thing is in the same way you treat your garden, i.e., maintenance is fine, preventing death is fine, but improving is prohibited. You no.
No.
You
That's-
pruning,
that's
no,
fine.
pruning is done in order to improve the growth. If there is a certain branch that is threatening the existence of the entire thing, then you can take it. What? Geranium. The geranium, no, I understand, but the geranium, cutting it, and you're cutting the again. If it's outdoors, as I said, and you then the geranium, you'll have to you'll have to treat it. I believe differently than you treat it on a regular basis, like when it's not Shmita. Okay? It's in a pot with a dish, but it's outdoors, and the geranium flows over the land. And I think then it's outdoors again. It's not no roof. Then you'll have to treat it the way you treat your garden, and that means that you can't just cut it, since the cutting is improving the growth, right? The cutting of the geranium is, if it's clearly, okay, I'll give you an analogy, okay? Let's say someone has a fence, what we call in Hebrew, I'm translating, gader chaya, a living fence. How do you call it? Hedge. So hedge, for instance, if it's not mamash crowded, meaning hedges with big holes there, it's a problem because you're actually cutting it to increase its growth. If it's already rich and full, then also only you'll cut it, the hedges, only if clearly it, let's say you're doing it because it disturbs the people that are going through, only when it's very clear that the purpose is not for growth, okay? And okay. בסוף השיעור אתה יכול להכריז מה שאתה רוצה, מוזמן, בשמחה. So yeah, so I hope I answered you about the geranium. What?
The impression that to maintain the shape or aesthetic look, it's concern.
That aesthetic, again, if here again, if it's very clear that this thing is done only for aesthetic look and not for growth, then it's okay. The problem is that sometimes it will, yeah, and then no. So look, if you're removing things just because they're dead, then it seems that it's okay. Okay, because there is a clarity that you're moving dead leaves. Okay. Did we have David? Yes.
Subject for next week, the question of you have, say, fruit trees in the garden. Question of making them hefker and making them open to the public.
Very good. No, Dafka.
Fence, locked fence.
It is true. It does belong to next, but it's all belong. I prepared. It's a very good question. So, as we know, one of the tremendous commandments of Shmita that is fitting exactly the vision that Rav Kook wrote about Shmita and everything is the fact that we are, as the psukim say in the paragraph in Parshat Bahar, and also that we're, for this year, actually, everyone is eating from the trees because the fruit is hefker. No ownership, no private ownership over the fruit. What?
What's it?
Hefker is that just that we're saying that no, I'll explain you. Hefker means that we declare, either the Torah declares or we declare. That's a machlokes, by the way. If it's automatic, because the Torah already seized stopped our private ownership over these fruit, or that we actually need in our mouth to say that, or both, like Reb Moshe Feinstein says in the Tshuva, that both things are in play. Okay, meaning the automatic disclaiming this ownership. Okay, what he has fruit trees in his garden, and he's right. The fruits that are budding after Tu B'Shvat this year. So these fruit don't belong to David. They belong to all Am Yisrael. And that's fantastic. And that's a tremendous message that we're all eating from the table of Hashem, one year. And as Rav Lichtenstein says, it means that it's not a regular tzedakah, because in a regular tzedakah, inevitably there is a feeling, or could be a feeling of some superiority. I'm the giver and you're the receiver. Here you're not a giver and there's no receiver. Everyone eats from Hashem. That's one of the great visions of Shmita. Okay, now you're asked, what about practically? All right. So Allah L'maisa, it seems that there's an agreement that you don't need actually, if you're for security reasons or other reason, you don't want just people freely traveling in your yard. Let's say you're concerned about it. Okay, no, so that will be a problem. If your sign will say only ones who paid their dues. Okay, at any rate, so I think that the main thing here is not that way. Rather, so here, even though Chazon Ish says different, but that's the agreement, both based on the Ravid and Rav Kook, Rishonim and Achronim, you're allowed to actually, if there is a need, again, if there's let's say, even lock your garden. What I don't do, by the way, I mean, our garden, everyone that is willing to walk up the stairs, that's our little obstacle. But let's say, Tachlis, Rav Rimon, they say you're allowed to lock it, but then if you lock, then you need to put a certain sign or something like that. And then I don't know how many people want it. They'll get a lot of phone calls in their cell, or I don't know what. But Tachlis, there should be a certain way, accessibility. You should give the option to people to come and have fruit. Right, so that was your question, David. And now, do I need to do hefker? As I said, so those who are machmir on it do in the beginning, gather some 3 people and say my gina, the fruit in my gina are hefker. Okay, so that's generally this. And you yourself, of course, you're allowed, as I said, to collect for yourself, okay, at a certain quantity. What? No, but how do you get inside? No, so what do you mean by through the front?
It's a back garden. It's closer to the fence.
Not on the road.
On the road, it's on the fence.
Look, you don't need, if there is a fence, okay, that's an interesting question.
The question is, right, you put up a sign and say everything is here, or do I just, leave it as it is?
And what happens if you write a sign that everything inside is hefker? So why not put that sign? So you could put that sign. I'm not sure you're strictly halachically required mamash, but there's definitely room to say that it's better that you'll put such a sign. Yeah. What do you mean? If you need to break the fence so that people will have accessibility, you don't need to break the fence in order. Okay? And you can write, yeah, that's fine. And you'll put your fruit, some fruit outside, but then the rest, the assumption is that they're not allowed to take. So that assumption is problematic. What? Could do that. It's video. It all goes around. Look, the yard, the fruits in the yard are hefker. And it should be understood that they're hefker, okay? On the other hand, no one requires you to be in certain positions of security, etc. Okay? So whatever you figure out how to go between these two things, it's fine.
Or again, we're talking about fruit.
Right? We're not talking about
already.
nachon. Well, actually, in a minute. בסדר? בבקשה. I'll look. I don't have a on the spot answer to that. He asked, Muhammad asked whether we should prevent Arabs from taking fruit from our trees because of the concern of Kedushat Shvit. But what is your concern, that they won't keep Kedushat Shvit? Well, unfortunately, some of the Jews that will collect some. I assume, again, I didn't look into it deeply, but I assume that you don't, from that end, you don't need, because one can claim, again, I didn't articulate it. One can claim that just like you're allowed mitnei darkei shalom, let's say, to give tzedakah to a Gentile, well, if you look, let's say an Arab takes some of my fruits, so I would say that it's as if I took it and I gave it to him. I'm allowed to do it, okay? L'chora. But that's like an initial thought. I didn't, I'm just saying. I don't think I don't think, let's put it this way. As Chava said, we didn't see, let's say, and that could be a clue. We have stores that are selling Otzar Beitin. We didn't see instructions to these sellers now tell our Gentiles you're not allowed to buy this produce because it's or Jews that are that can. It's written there. You should keep Kedushat Shvi. Ken, בבקשה, סליחה. No, so here that will, again, we'll deal with this next week regarding but generally speaking, as y'all know, fruit and vegetables that are only in Kedushat Shvi, they're exempt from Trumot U'Masrot. That's part of that's the whole thing. We have the table, the first year of Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, second year of the table, and the seventh year. It's part of the thing that everything that has the Kedushat Shvi is also exempt from Trumot U'Masrot. That's generally speaking. In practicality, we'll talk more about the details next week. Is Judy? What? Was it? No, I understand. So, what? Right, hydroponics, and I think that what Ruchama said is right, but B, again, from just as I answered you, you can do a kal vachomer. Yeah, you asked me about the tulip. So here you have it's indoors. It's not on the ground. You have it's indoors, and it's without a hole. Even if it was in land, it was okay. So kal vachomer. Okay. All right. We'll take some more questions, and then probably game is over. But Ken.
So if I have a window box, something on the second floor inside a window like that, how far out does the top of the window have to go to be considered covered?
I want to see that you correct. You're on the second floor. And then what?
How far does the window have to come out?
No, okay. So I understand the question. I'm just talking about. Yeah, I understand. Underneath, the first thing regarding a flower planter, which is the more fixed translation to the underneath, not flower pot, but flower planter. So the flower planter. First of all, I need to say that if it's connected to the building, if it's something that is part of the, no, it's sitting on, but it's not part, there's some flower planters that are some of the construction of the building. Okay, so I understand. So how far should the roof cover all of it? What? Yeah, I understand. So you add, but you say that some of the plant. So what's the question? Yeah. I thought that you said that maybe part of it is tachat kippah. Maybe there could have been leniency, but kal vachomer. Yeah.
Question concerning the type of roof over something. What's considered indoors, what's considered outdoors? Very often there's a tarp, which is porous, hanging, and it's permanent. They have potted plants over.
I think it's considered. Look, in chamamot, we're saying that in matzah menutak, we're saying that the chamamot is defining it as indoors. Okay.
Even if it's porous.
Even if it's
porous. Let the rain come through. It's like what we have here.
Okay.
That's but it's permanent. It's for years there.
Okay, that's it. And are there walls?
Yes.
So here, I think there's room to say that it's considered a house, but okay, I'll double check myself. But okay. So I think people started voting with their feet. So Avnerim, thank you very much. And I know it's just an intro. I'm sure there'll be more questions, and you're all welcome to email.